Hello, my name is Joe Coffman.
And I'm Mike Coffman.
We are two brothers, one goal, helping educators build wealth, specializing in educators in the state of Indiana and maximizing their retirement benefits. We get the question all the time, when can I retire? What's it going to look like? It's a great question. It's not something you want to jump on and say, I'm ready to retire. There is some planning involved. And so what Mike and our job today is to help convey those messages to you and the things that you need to consider as you're getting to your retirement and planning for your retirement.
All right, let's dig in, Joe. So one of the big things is we always talk about the places you have money. One of the great things about being a teacher in Indiana as it pertains to retirement, you have a lot of things going on your behalf. You've got the Indiana Public Retirement System pension. We're going to talk about the eligibility, how you claim your benefits, how to calculate your benefits. You've got the annuity savings account, now commonly referred to as the defined contribution. You've got Social Security. When should I draw? How do I calculate? What age? What's the taxes on that? You've got retirement accounts. You might have a 403B, a 403B match. You've got the defined contribution from the state. You might have a Roth IRA, a 401A, a VEBA. You've got a lot of things going on your behalf, and you might even have part-time work in retirement. A lot of our clients might do that. So the big thing is that's really good. You got a lot of things happening on your behalf. The bad thing about being an educator in Indiana, you've got a lot of things going on your behalf, and nobody really sits down and talks to you about how all these things work together. And we're going to hopefully do that today to help give you some good ideas on how all this stuff works.
And as you're planning, whether it's your first year or your 30th year as an educator in the state of Indiana, you need to get on the website and see what your benefits look like. You need to see that you have the correct years of service, see what your 5 highest salary years are, see who your beneficiaries are. Those are all important things that sometimes get neglected that we feel are very, very important when looking at your teacher retirement and the public employee retirement fund. Now, I mentioned those two, TERF and PERF. They are one and the same. Years of service plus with your PERF count towards your years of service with teacher retirement fund. Going to myimprretirement.org is the website that you go through for the state of Indiana to find out all this important information and plan for your retirement. You can contact them as well, 844-GO-IMPRS. But just understand, there's a lot of things that website can provide to help you understand your benefits a little bit better and working with a financial professional that understands how it works as well.
The big thing as you're planning for your retirement, as you mentioned earlier, Joe, this planning should start probably the first year of your teaching. But certainly as you go along, we certainly advise people to talk with your financial advisor and sit down and calculate all these numbers way before you start to really think about retirement. So how do I qualify for full benefits? There are 3 different ways that an educator can qualify for full benefits from their pension. The one many have heard about is the Rule of 85. So on the Rule of 85, you take your age plus your years of service has to equal the age of equal the number 85. Now you have to be a minimum of age 55. So if you were 55 with 30 years, that's 85. You get full benefits from your pension. If you're 56 and 29 years, full benefits. But if you're 54 plus 31, that actually equals 85, but you have to be a minimum of age 55. So you would not get full benefits if you weren't at least 55. So the 3 ways, Rule of 85, 10 years plus at least age 65, so that combination, or age 60 plus at least 15 years. All 3 of those calculations get you full benefits. If you don't have one of those calculations, they're going to reduce your benefits, and they're going to reduce it for the rest of your retirement. So it's very important as you're working with your situation to make sure that you are understanding what those age factor reductions. So in that example, Joe, that if someone is 54 and has 31 years, again, not technically the Rule of 85, they're going to get reduced on their pension. So instead of getting the full benefit at age 54, they're going to get a reduced benefit. And you can see on that age factor chart what that reduction would be. So keep that in mind as you're working towards your full retirement.
And just understand too, if you meet the Rule of 85, 10 years and 55 or older, 10 years and 65, 15 and age 60, you can throw that factor out, right? It's
correct.
1.0, it's unreduced, you qualify for full benefits. If you think there's a discrepancy in your years of service, it's simple. You call IMPRS, you ask for a verification of service, you do it over the phone, it takes 60 to 90 days, they get back with you and say, yes, you were correct, you should have been credited more years of service, or no, actually they were correct. Simple process, making sure, because there's 2 ways to increase your pension. We'll talk about it, but make more money on average or work longer.
Got to make sure your years of service are correct. It's going to impact the rest of your life. So the second part, we just talked about the pension a little bit. We're going to dig into it more. What's the defined contribution, Joe?
All right, the defined contribution from the state of Indiana is totally separate from the defined benefit, two separate parts. We can't stress that enough. We get the question all the time, well, I thought this was to pay for the pension, or I thought this was the same as the pension. Your defined contribution, the state of Indiana defines the contribution that they're going to fund on your behalf. So the employer contribution, typically 3% of your contract salary they pay in. All right, so this money, there is actually no vesting schedule on this. You are vested on this account right away. For the pension, we know you have to have 10 years to get qualified for full benefits or be eligible for a pension benefit. For the annuity savings account, you are vested from day one. It's funded by your employer in most situations. You have the ability to make contributions on your behalf if you'd like to. You just want to understand the stipulations of increasing or decreasing those and the rules of that. The beneficiaries, we talked about it a minute ago. If something happens to you, who do you want this money to go to? That's pretty important stuff. All right, we want to make sure that's updated, and you look at that on a regular basis to make sure that if something does happen to you, this bucket of money goes to the people you want it to.
And they're going to find that beneficiary on the website.
They will find that beneficiary on the website. Super easy to use, super easy to add. They also offer a 59.5 rule, okay? IRS says that at 59.5, you're eligible for retirement in the sense that you can access your retirement accounts. So the state of Indiana has made it allowable for those that are over 59.5 with a few particular situations or qualifications to be able to do so. But the ability to move those funds in the annuity savings account out to an IRA, cash it out possibly, or other options. But you do have options at 59.5 with this annuity in the sense of what you can do with it outside of the plan. But while you're still working, though, we talk about this all the time. The default investment may not be your best option. It may not be indicative of what your goals and objectives are. Making sure that allocation is right for you and where you're at in your stage of your career or of retirement for that matter. And investing, as I just mentioned before, vested from day one.
Day one, $1.
That is the defined contribution, what they call, formerly known as the annuity savings account to the state of Indiana.
Okay. So as we just stated, we're going to lay it out here again. This is so important. We go through it a few times. The Indiana Public Retirement System, collectively two separate parts. One is, as we said, the defined benefit. And just like the name implies, they define exactly how you calculate your benefit. And again, we're going to go through an example here in a moment. But they defined benefit. They're going to take your 5 highest years average salary, not necessarily your last 5 years. Whatever the highest 5 in your entire career were, they're going to grab those 5 highest salary years, and they're going to average them out. They're going to take that and multiply it times 1.1%. They're going to take that number and multiply it times your years of service, whether it's PERF service, teacher retirement service, all combined. They're going to multiply it times those years of service, and then they're going to multiply it times the age factor. We talked about the age factor, Joe. The age factor is a reduction in your pension if you don't meet one of the 3 rules, which was the rule of 85 with a minimum of age 55, age 60 plus at least 15, or age 65 plus 10. If you have one of those 3, your age factor is 1. Again, we're going to do a calculation in a moment. You take that number, that's your annual benefit. They divide it by 12, pay it to you monthly. The other part, again, 2 separate parts, your defined contribution. This is the 3% that the employer is putting in your account on your behalf. You get both. You have to make decisions about both when you retire. Okay? So let's go through an actual calculation. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so this scenario right here, we have a average 5 highest salary years for this educator, $75,000. Okay? So in this scenario, $75,000, we're going to say that this person's 55 years of age. Okay? 55 years of age, average salary, $75,000. They take that by the multiplier of 1.1%, which is a factor of 0.011. That gives you a total of 825. And so years of service here, 33 years of service. How old is this member? 55. So what's that mean? Do they meet the rule of 85?
They got the rule of 85.
Rule of 85. It actually adds up to 88, no such thing. But the total income there essentially is 27,000 or so, 225. They take the age factor. Remember, we can throw that out the window. It's 1.0, right? There's unreduced benefits. You qualify for full benefits from the state of Indiana in this scenario. Age 55 or older and 33 years of service gets them full benefits unreduced. So that is the total annual amount they're going to pay that member for the rest of their lives. Forever, right? It's guaranteed by the state of Indiana. And so we take that, divide it by 12. will give you your 5-year certain life payment of $22.68 before taxes. Okay, so in this scenario, $75,000, highest 5 years of income, years of service 33, age 55 or older. They're looking at a 5-year payout option of $2,268.
The good thing about this calculation, Joe, is all the educators in Indiana, if you're still working, you can do this calculation on your own. You can get your teacher retirement, 5 highest years, either from the website or your statement, and you can run through this calculation to get an estimate on what you might receive at retirement as well. It's really important to do this. Work with your financial advisor as well if you feel like you need to. So keep in mind that calculation, that 5-year certain calculation, is just the start of the options that you have on your pension. So for educators that are married, you might be sitting down with your financial advisor and say, well, hey, this is what my pension is, but what happens if I were to pass away in retirement? What is my spouse going to get? So the state has thought about that as well, and they do offer you options to provide survivorship for your spouse. So when you do that calculation that we just did on the prior page, that starts the calculation, and that gives you, as you mentioned, Joe, the 5-year certain and life. 5-year certain and life. In fact, there's 5 different payouts you could choose from. All 5 of these options pay you, the educator, they pay you forever. If you live to be 114, the money still comes in. The difference amongst the 5 is what happens if you were to pass away, and what would your survivor get? So we want to go through that. So 5-year certain we just saw on that other page, $2,268 per month. You get that how long, Joe?
Forever.
The educator gets all of these payouts forever. The difference is, in that particular scenario on 5-year certain, if you were to live in retirement for, let's say, 2 years and then pass away, someone, presumably your spouse, whoever you've named beneficiary, would receive that payment for the remainder of the 5 years. So if you lived for 2 years, they'd get it for 3 years. If you lived for 4 years, they get it for 1 year. If you lived for 4 years and 11 months, they would get 1 month's payment. But at the 5-year period, if the retiree is not here, the paycheck is not here. So we're going to call that no survivorship option. We're hoping you live more than 5 years in retirement, no benefit to your survivor. Okay? There is something called straight life. So I've always tried to describe these different survivorship options. When you're thinking of these options, think of life insurance. This is certainly not life insurance, but think of that in that way, in that when you buy a life insurance policy, you pay a certain amount every month so that if you were to die, your family gets money. This is very similar. Okay, so on the straight life option, you're going to get a little bit more. Straight life actually says if you die after 1 month's payment in retirement, nobody gets a nickel. So because of that, they pay you a few bucks more, and you can see it's hardly anything to be too impressed about. So straight life pays the retiree forever because all of them pay them forever, but you get a little bit more. But if you were to die after a week, there's not even a 5-year certain payout. So it's kind of hard to look at your wife and say, or your husband and say, I love you, honey, but not that much. You're not getting any of my pension. So they do provide survivorship options. The first survivorship option is 50% survivor. So you as the retiree, you're going to take a reduction in your pay, right? You're going to go from that $2,268 to $2,130. It's a reduction in your pay. Okay? If something were to happen to you after 1 year, after 5 years, after 20 years, if your survivor is still alive when you pass away, your survivor is going to get half of your benefit, half of the $2,130. And you can see on the far right there, that tells you what the approximate cost might be for providing that 50% survivorship. The second option for survivorship, 66 and 2/3% survivorship. So a little bit higher benefit, a little bit more cost to you, the retiree, correct? So you're going to take a little bit more of a reduction. Just over $2,000 a month is what you're going to get. If you were to pass away, your survivor, again, is going to get 2/3 of your retirement benefit. And you can see on the far right, the cost is slightly higher there. And then finally, full survivorship, 100% survivorship. You take, this is the maximum amount you can pass on to your survivor. And you can see your reduction in benefits is a little larger. But then if something were to happen to you, your spouse or your beneficiary would get the exact same amount you were getting for as long as you were to live. Okay? All of these pay the retiree forever. It depends on what you want to happen should you pass away.
Absolutely. And when we sit down with educators and we're planning this process through, not only in the the year that they retire, but the year's planning for their retirement,
For sure.
right? we want to make sure that both the husband or the spouses, the couple, understand that if the member passes away, what they would be eligible for, and if that is something that they're dependent upon. If they're dependent upon this pension, meaning it might uproot their financial lives, they need to understand that they need to have a survivorship if somebody else is dependent upon that pension. So just planning the process through, understanding what the payouts are, and if something happens to either one of you, what that financial picture would look like. So this is a very good pension guaranteed by the state of Indiana. Understand that you have some options and you want to be aware of those options as you're planning.
And to that point, Joe, you also want to know how, that's why we talked about the places you have money, how this fits into the rest of the picture, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, but it is a big picture. You want to make sure you're putting all the puzzle pieces together.
And the state of Indiana never had this as meant to replace your income. It's meant to supplement your retirement income.
For sure. Okay. Social Security integration or leveler. Joe, this is a pretty complex conversation here. We're going to talk about it today, but certainly this is something you want to be talking to the state of Indiana about and your financial advisor, because it is a way that you can integrate your Social Security benefit with your pension. So do you want to dig into that?
Absolutely. So in a scenario that you decide that you want to retire from the state of Indiana as a public school teacher and draw your pension, the state of Indiana offers a service that's called the Social Security integration or leveler. And essentially in this scenario, we have an educator who's age 55. Okay, they have years of service, 32 years of service, and their estimate for their pension on straight life is $2,500. Okay, that's the scenario for the state teacher's pension for this person. They also have the ability to draw on their Social Security, but not until age 62. They're 55 currently. So at age 62, the estimate from the Social Security Administration says that they're going to pay them for the rest of their lives $1,500. Okay, so what we're going to do is show you what that looks like if you were to, in fact, use this service offered by the state of Indiana. And so choosing Social Security Leveler with your pension, in this scenario, age 55, the state of Indiana is going to pay your pension. It's $2,500. We just went through that. But as a service, they're not going to pay you what you're eligible to get at age 62. They're going to pay you a portion of what you're expected to get from your Social Security to give you a little extra income from 55 or whenever you retire before 62 until 62 and through 62. So age 62, they would draw their pension actually goes down. They're eligible to draw from the Social Security Administration $1,500 in this scenario, right? That was the estimate from Social Security. You can start that at age 62, but when you turn 62, the state of Indiana, as a service for offering that extra leveler, is dropping your pension down from $2,500 down to $2,000. And so the total income at age 55, $3,500, $2,500 from your pension, and a service of the leveler from the state of Indiana of an extra $1,000. Age 62, your pension goes down from $2,500 down to $2,000. And the Social Security you could then pull from the Social Security Administration of $1,500, keeping that income level. Okay, so it's definitely a service. It's not used all too often, but it is definitely something you can consider taking if, in fact, you need extra income and you're less than age 62 eligible to draw your Social Security benefit.
One of the key facts here is that, which we'll go through right now, is if someone does take this leveler, when they reach 62, had they not taken the leveler, they actually would have gotten more income. So not only do you want to look at the first few years of retirement when you're deciding on whether or not you should exercise this option, you want to look at your entire retirement. So this scenario, Joe, let's go through what happens. Had they not taken that leveler, what might their retirement look like in that scenario?
Absolutely. This is a shift that you can cash in before age 50 or retiring before age 62. But in a scenario where you say, you know what, I'm either going to supplement my income through a little part-time work or go back to another job to generate a little bit of income or draw from my investments. But essentially age 55, without doing the Social Security leveler, we know our pension in this scenario is $2,500. Okay, we're 55 years young. We cannot tap into our Social Security. We do not take the leveler service that's offered through the state. And we delay that, right? So age 55 to 62, our income is $2,500. But at age 62, you now are eligible to draw into your Social Security. And your pension, your estimate for that is $1,500. In this scenario, your income at age 62 is greater than what it was with the leveler. It's $4,000 a month for the rest of your life. One guaranteed by the state of Indiana and the other guaranteed by the Social Security Administration. $4,000 of income. So it does behoove you to delay it. If in fact not take that Social Security leveler, but just understand it's an option. And we just want to make sure you understood what that option is.
Correct. Work with your advisor, take into account all of your different parts of your retirement, and make sure you're making the right decision for you. Okay, so when you go onto the teacher retirement, we talked about what the website is. If you wanted to run an estimate and you wanted to see what your retirement looks like, this is what you're going to see. So this is the printout that's going to go through. You're going to see your 5 highest years salary. You're going to see your age. You're going to see your number of years of service. If you have perf service, they're going to list that there. They're going to tell you what your age factor is. And then on the other page, they're also going to break down what your income choices are. You see the 5-year certain in life, you see the straight life, and the different survivorship options. You want to make sure that you're making this calculation estimate and running this estimate, years before you retire, and certainly before you retire, so you can make sure you're calculating the numbers appropriately to make sure you plan appropriately. Keep in mind in there, we didn't have it in this scenario, but this particular, you can actually run the Social Security leveler if you get an estimate from Social Security as well, so that you can calculate that number. Know that the number's there. It's tools you can use to plan for your retirement and make better decisions.
So a little recap of IMPRS and your benefits. Rule of 85, we've talked about it several times, but the rule of 85, years of service plus your age have to equal 85, but over the age of 55 to get unreduced full benefits. The other two options, 10 years of service and at age 65 get you full benefits, unreduced, as well as age 60 and 15 years of service. All right, 2 separate parts. We talk about it all the time. I get the question all the time. I didn't realize they were separate. You do have 2 separate parts. The defined benefit, which is your monthly pension, it's a calculation. The only way to increase that pension payout is to make more money on average, higher income, and work longer, years of service. Those are the 2 driving factors that boost that monthly wage up. The defined contribution, that is typically funded by your employer. You can actually impact that while you're working. You're vested from day one. The way that you impact that account is paying attention to the investment allocation and the default investment or the investments that you currently have, and making those changes based upon your current goals and objectives. And as those goals change, you pivot and make those changes to the allocation. Okay? When you're on the website, there's so many things that you need to look at. We always tell people years of service are important. We talked about the age verification. It is a super simple process. I've contacted the state with many educators. We go through the process. They get back and says, yes, you're correct, or no, you're incorrect. Just making sure those years of service are correct. Beneficiaries. That goes for every retirement account, not only the state of Indiana's account and your annuity savings account, but making sure your beneficiaries are correct, right? We want to make sure that if something happens to you, it goes to the people that you would want it to go to. And then contact information, change of address, contact, phone number, email, all that stuff is very important to have on up to date through the state of Indiana, so they're well aware how to get in touch with you. We talked about the investment allocation and the defined contribution. There's default investment options to choose from, just making sure it's fitting for what you're at currently with your goals and objectives. Now, the Millie-Morgan rule is something that's kind of always been there. What exactly is the Millie-Morgan rule, Mike?
So the Millie-Morgan rule is a way that an educator that is still working can actually start drawing their retirement pension even though they're still working. And for the entire time, it's always been age 70. If you were age 70 and had 20 years of service, you could actually start taking your pension even though you're still working. As of July 1st of this year, 2023, the state of Indiana changed it. It's now age 65. So if you're age 65 and a minimum of 20 years of service and still working, you could actually start your pension payments even though you're still working. So it's a really interesting conversation to have, Joe. There's certain cautions that things to be concerned about. If you do trigger that Millie-Morgan rule and you do exercise it, know that it's there. And if you're 65 and still working, have a conversation with your financial advisor. It could be a very important step in your retirement future.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate the time that you've taken with us to listen to how your retirement benefits work through the state of Indiana as a public school teacher. Again, Joe Coffman
and Mike Coffman.
We're 2 brothers with one goal, helping teachers and educators in the state of Indiana maximize their retirement benefits.